Hi guys, hope you're all doing good and hope your preparation is on track. Today, on the 2nd of December 2023, let us look at some of the important issues in news in 30 minutes. Now, before we proceed, one thing that most of the students are asking is regarding note making of current affairs. Okay, as I keep telling you, irrespective of what notes you're making, make sure that when it comes to current affairs, let it be news in 30 minutes or let it be your newspaper reading. Always make notes keeping 4 folders. You keep the 4 folders GS1, GS2, GS3 and GS4, and whatever topics is overlapping with the syllabus of these papers, add them. Write the topics in the A4 sheet and add the A4 sheet to that relevant folder. So you need to keep maintaining or stacking all the issues that happens in the current affairs on the basis of the mains papers. Okay, so keep doing this over the next 1 year consistently. Okay, don't miss even one day. I'll also make sure that I'll not miss even a single day, and I want you also to show me the same diligence. With that, let us start off with the important issues on the 2nd of December 2023. The first is our Prime Minister, which is for 2028 edition of COP in India. So the current COP that is happening is COP 28 2023. So our Prime Minister has pitched for a COP that takes place in 2028, that is known as COP 33. This is a very good call by India, which shows or reflects the leadership role that India has taken, not only to be a voice for South nations, as well as the voice for all those nations that are highly vulnerable and suffering from the consequences of global warming and climate change. Okay, so that is a good move. Now, as I've told you, since COP 28 is currently ongoing, there are a lot of new initiatives that keeps coming up. There are a lot of new agreements that keep coming up, and there are a lot of new commitments that keeps coming up. So you should have a very keen observation over the COP 28 for the next few days. I will also keep updating, but I want you to do it from your side as well. Okay, so in today's update, the update is there are a few statistics that is important, as well as our Prime Minister has also come up with something called Green Credit Scheme. Before I get into Green Credit Scheme, let me provide you some facts that you can use in your answers to substantiate how India has performed in its metrics of fighting climate change. The first is, despite India is being home to 17% of the world's population, despite India being home to 17% of the world's population, it emits less than 4% of global carbon emissions. Okay, so less than 4% of global carbon emission is emitted by India, though it also 17% of the world's population. That is the first aspect. The second is, if we take emission intensity and if we take the renewable energy, or let me just rephrase it as non-fossil fuel targets. Okay, non-fossil fuel targets. So in emission intensity, we had the target of reducing our emission intensity by 45% by 2030, and we also add the non-fossil fuel target to increase the total installed capacity to 50% by 2030. Okay, now we should be proud to tell that the emission intensity, we are able to achieve the target 11 years ahead of schedule. We are 11 years ahead of schedule in achieving this target, and we are 9 years ahead of schedule in achieving this target. So this is the performance of India in fighting global warming and climate change. Okay, the third statistics that I want you to give is the impact of climate change on India. So this is the statistics that I am taking from the COP 28 report that is released during the recent conference of parties. And according to this report, the impact of climate change on India, it says that the total GDP loss that India has faced during the year 2022 due to climate change is 8%. So we have lost 8% of the GDP due to the climate change. The next statistics is, as of 2022, India has suffered from a cumulative decrease. India has suffered from a cumulative decrease of 7.9% in capital wealth due to climate change. Okay, cumulative decrease of 7.9% of capital wealth and GDP loss of 8% due to climate change. Okay, according to the same report, the impact on the world, it says due to climate change, the impact on the world is almost close to $1.5 trillion. So the impact, what the developed nations are not seeing is this impact. They are feeling that by providing money of $1 billion every year to the adaptation fund, they are going to be at a loss. But what they are not seeing is, look at the amount of loss it is going to incur in the future as well if we don't together fight the aspect of climate change. So this is one analysis that I wanted to tell you, and these facts are very important that you can use directly in your answers. Okay, the next is the concept. There is one more concept in the same report that is called as feedback effects. Now what is this concept? This concept means because of climate change, there is reduced GDP growth, and because there is reduced GDP growth, it puts less pressure on natural resources. Okay, so this climate change leading to reduced GDP growth leading to less pressure on natural resources is what is termed as feedback effects. Okay, and this is a term that is present in the COP28 report. Okay, that is one thing. The next is, as I told you, our Prime Minister has introduced a scheme that is known as a green credit scheme. It is a very innovative and novel scheme. So what green credit scheme means is, first we need to keep an inventory of degraded wasteland. The next, individuals or organizations who voluntarily want to take up this degraded wasteland can take up, and they can create plantations. And because they create plantations on this wasteland, it is like reclaiming the land, which will act as a carbon sink. Hence, they are going to get green credits. And these individuals or companies can use this green credits for future expansion, or also they can use this to trade. So this trading can be done on digital medium, and this trading can be done on transboundary. That is, it can become a trading that is done in international scale. So that is what is green credit scheme. So it makes carbon sequestration an objective, and it gives the profit orientation towards the carbon sequestration, and also it allows countries to take part in the fighting climate change. So it's a very innovative way in order to reclaim the land on one side, to create forests, and in a way trying to also make sure that giving the credit which incentivizes many organizations and private firms, because there is a profit orientation also within this particular scheme. So it kind of tries to address all stakeholders, from environment, from government, from individuals and private sector, and tries to make sure that each and every stakeholder is incentivized to fight for climate change. So that is the innovativeness or innovation that is there in this green credit scheme. Okay, so this is about the first issue. The second issue again is about the governor. The governor is always in news for different reasons. We have been seeing continuously the governor's issue due to Article 200. Now this issue is mainly to do with the governor and his role as the Chancellor of Universities. Okay, the governor and his role as the Chancellor of University. Now let me just give you the heading. The heading reads: End political meddling in Kerala campuses. The ongoing tussle between the governor and the government has badly hurt Kerala higher education sector. 10 out of 15 state universities are without full-time vice chancellors. Okay. Now first let me just give you a background of what is happening. The first is, if you take governor, you have Article 153. Article 153 says that there shall be a governor for every state of India. Article 154 says that the executive power of the state the executive power of the state shall be vested with the governor. This is what is Article 154. Article 155 says that this governor is appointed by the president. That is why the governor is a nominated head and not elected. The governor is an appointee of the central government. Okay, so that is one thing that you should keep in mind. The next is Article 163, which says that the governor has to take decisions on the basis of the aid and advice of chief minister and his or her council of ministers. His or her council of ministers. Okay, now this Article 163, that is the governor has to take decisions on the basis of the aid and advice of the council of ministers. This Article 163 has come in conflict with the governor's role as Chancellor of University. Okay, so the point is, when the governor is discharging his or her role as the Chancellor of University, should the governor act independently, or should the governor be acting in accordance to the aid and advice of the chief minister and the council of minister? Okay, so that is the question that was there in hand. Okay, so now let us see what the Supreme Court has told. Now, before going to the Supreme Court's verdict, let me just give you a background of how this chancellorship is given to the governor. If you take the governor, as you know that the governor is a constitutional authority, and though the governor is a constitutional authority, the governor is a constitutional office, and though the governor is a constitutional office, the governor is appointed by the president. Okay, now the governor, as the governor discharges a duty called Chancellor of University. Now this Chancellor of University is a role that is given to the governor via State University Acts. Okay, State University Acts. So the point I am trying to make is, the governor, when the governor is discharging the role as Chancellor, that is a statutory role. It is not a constitutional role. You should keep that in your mind. Okay, so the state will have State University Act, and these State University Acts will make governor the default chancellor. This governor will make, the State University Act will make the governor the default chancellor of all universities in the state. All universities in the state. That is one. The next is, after making the governor as the default chancellor of all universities, another power that is vested in the governor is appointment of vice chancellors. Okay, that is another role that is discharged by the governor. Okay, now what is happening? The Kerala government is trying to reappoint. The Kerala government is trying to reappoint the same person who has been the vice chancellor again, and in doing so, the Kerala government is trying to put pressure on the governor to make sure that the governor has to appoint the person whom the Kerala government is pressurizing the governor to appoint. Okay, so in a way, the Kerala government is telling that you have to act on the aid and advice of the government in appointing VCs. Okay, so this is what the Kerala government said. However, now the Supreme Court's recent judgment has come, and the Supreme Court's judgment tells that governor, when the governor is discharging the duty as the governor of the state, then the governor has to go by Article 163. That is, the governor has to follow the aid and advice of the chief minister and the council of ministers. But when the governor is discharging the function as the chancellor of university, then in that scenario, the governor can act independently. Now this is what independently. So this is what the Supreme Court has come out with. So with this judgment, the governor acting as a chancellor will have independent discretionary powers in order to not only appoint the vice chancellors, he need not heed to the aid and advice of the chief minister and the council of ministers. Okay, so that is the takeaway of this particular issue. Now, the Kerala government also, what the Kerala government has done is, the Kerala government has amended its statutory act, and it is wanting to remove the governor as default head of chancellorship. That is, it has actually sent a bill. It has actually sent a bill. In this bill, the governor is replaced The governor is replaced as the chancellor. However, this bill is staying with the governor and the governor has to give assent to the bill. So instead of giving assent to the bill, the governor has reserved this bill to the president. Okay, the governor has reserved the bill to the president. So we should see what will be the take of the union government regarding this bill, where the Kerala government is trying to replace the governor as the Chancellor of University. Okay, so this is another issue that is happening regarding governor. However, now you got to know the clarity that when the governor discharges his or her duty as the Chancellor of University, they can act independently. They need not heed to the aid and advice of the Chief Minister as well as the Council of Minister. So I hope this issue was clear. Please make sure that governor is a very, very important office, especially for your preparation perspective. So I have a very good idea about it. Okay, the next is a very good case study that this author has written, and this author says that the development of any individual depends majorly on the place of birth. That is, it depends majorly on which place that person is born. Okay, so if the person is born in a place that is developed, then that person will go on to achieve more. That person will have a good education, healthcare and so on. And if the person is born in a bad location, then that person is suffering from health, that person is illiterate, the person is suffering from poverty, that person does not have job. So this is one highlighting that the author makes. The author makes the development of an individual, it majorly depends upon the location. See, because until now what we thought, the development of an individual depends upon the parents, the development of an individual depends upon the caste or the social system or the economic class. See, these are some of the actors which will decide the development of an individual. But this author very nicely tells that the development of an individual depends on the location as well. Okay, the author gives the example of Maharashtra. So if you take Maharashtra, you have the Vidarbha and you have the Marathawada. Okay, now if you take Vidarbha and Marathawada and if you compare it with Western Maharashtra is very developed compared to Marathawada and Vidarbha. So if you consider those children who are born in Marathawada as well as Vidarbha, now the development of those children are very different compared to the children that are born in Western Maharashtra. The reason why the author says is, if you take Western Maharashtra on one side and if you take Vidarbha and Marathawada on the other side, okay, the average monthly per capita consumption expenditure, the average monthly consumption per capita expenditure, okay, the average monthly consumption expenditure in Eastern Maharashtra, that is this Vidarbha and Marathawada, the average monthly consumption per capita expenditure in Eastern Maharashtra is 35% lower than Western Maharashtra. See, and because there is such stark regional inequity, this regional inequity will also reflect in developmental inequity. And this developmental inequity can be seen at the level of individuals. Are you seeing this? So this is what the author says. The author says how regional inequity will now go on to also reflect in developmental inequity amongst individuals. He gives the example of Maharashtra, where he says the average monthly consumption per capita expenditure of Eastern Maharashtra is 35% lower than the Western Maharashtra. Okay. Not only that, he also gives the example of Karnataka. He says in Karnataka, if we divide the Karnataka into North Karnataka and South Karnataka, North Karnataka is agrarian economy and South Karnataka is industrialized. It is morely service sector based and it is highly industrialized and urbanized. And he says that there is again a stark contrast in regional development. So we have regional inequity, and obviously this regional inequity has translated into developmental inequity. Okay, now this is a very good analysis or a perspective, okay, that shows that how a location can play or influence a role in development. Okay, now the author says that actually the author says this aspect has been taken care of in the constitution. The author says this aspect is already taken care of in the constitution, because the author tells article 371 in the article 371 in the constitution actually addresses regional inequity within the state. Article 371 addresses the regional inequities within the state. Now according to this, if you take the article 371, okay, that is addressing the regional inequity. Okay, now if you take Maharashtra, we have something called article 371.2. Okay, we have 371.2. okay, so 371.1 is Saurashtra, 371.2 is it is mainly to do with the developmental boards, in Vidarbha and Marathwada. Okay, it is to do with developmental boards in Vidarbha and Marathwada. Okay, now these developmental boards are created so that there is equitable allocation of funds. There is equitable allocation of funds. Also, there is education that is given. There is vocational training that is done, as well as employment opportunities is given in the form of quota within the government jobs. Okay, so look at this. This is article 371. Now this already addresses how location can act as an important influence in development. That is why you are creating developmental boards in order to give equitable allocation of funds, education, vocational training, as well as employment opportunities. One more example that the author says is article 371J. Now article 371J helped in creating what we call as Hyderabad Karnataka Regional Developmental Board. Okay, again this regional developmental board is in charge of allocation of funds, as well as education, vocational training, as well as employment. Now look how we can tell that the constitution was forward looking, and how the forefathers of our constitution knew that location as a factor, as a very important role in deciding the development of any individual, and in turn the development of a state. Okay, so this is what the author tells. All right, now one thing, so what is the way forward? So what the author says is, the way forward, the author says, is mainly to do with statistics. See, the author tells that one, in the constitution we have article 371, but how are the developmental boards performing? If you take the developmental board performance, there is no assessment done at all. For example, it says article 371(2), which creates developmental boards for Vidarbha and Marathwada, that this was created in 1994. If you take article 371J, this is Hyderabad Karnataka Developmental Board. This was created in 2013. Now from this year, there has been no data in order to assess how well have they performed. If that is the case, how are you going to fight regional inequity? That is the first question that the author asks. Okay, so this is what the author says, that we have to work on creating statistics. He says, one, there should be a chief statistician. There has to be a chief statistician in every state, in the similar manner as the chief secretary. Just like a state has chief secretary who is the head of the executive in the state, in the same manner there has to be a chief statistician who is the head of all the statistical departments within the state from different levels like village, taluks, district, etc. Then the author says that since they provide data to the State Finance Commission, okay, since they provide data to the State Finance Commission, and since the State Finance Commission is in charge of allocation of fund, this data becomes very, very important. Okay, so especially the data that is provided by these statistic department should have village level data, it should have the city level data, and it should have the district level data. only when it has the level of data that is following the bottom up approach. Only when it follows the bottom up approach, then the data given by these statistical departments can actually make sense in the allocation of funds by the State Finance Commission. So these are the two things that the author says. We have to overhaul our statistical departments and the way we collected data, so that whatever constitutional provisions that we have regarding fighting regional inequality, that is within Article 371, can be realized to its truest spirit. Can be realized to its truest spirit. Okay, so this is regarding the the regional inequity and how to fight regional inequity. A very good case study that you can use in your mains answers. Okay, you need not always wait for them to ask in regional inequity itself. You can also use this in how location decides development of an individual. You can also use this in the importance of statistics or data in fighting poverty, or in fighting inequity, or in fighting any type of skewed development. Okay, so these are the areas where you can use this concept very well. Okay, also if you take these case study of Maharashtra and as well as Karnataka, it provides excellent case study of how more development has to be done within the state. Okay, so you can use this case study at different places in your mains answers. This will enrich your answers not only in your GS but also in your essay. So use it with very, very high diligence and discretion. Okay, so this completes this topic. The next topic is world's biggest experimental nuclear fusion reactor launched in Japan. Okay, again, science and technology, always the questions will be on application based. So whatever concept comes in news, you have to learn the basics of that concept. Okay, if cryptocurrency is in news, you have to know about blockchain technology. If artificial intelligence is in news, you have to know about machine learning. So always you should know the basics of what the application is being done. Okay, anyways, so coming to this world's biggest experimental nuclear reactor that is launched in Japan, what you should first know is, look at this, a joint project with EU involves more than 500 scientists and engineers and more than 70 companies. Okay, so now what is this? Before we get into what exactly is this article talking, you should understand what is the difference between nuclear fusion and nuclear fission. Okay, so currently all the nuclear power reactors that we have that is generating nuclear energy, so all the nuclear reactors that is generating nuclear energy, it is based on nuclear fission. Nuclear fission is based on the concept of an heavier element is broken into two smaller elements. Okay, when the heavier element is broken into two smaller elements, then this results in the release of energy, and this energy is used in order to generate power. Okay, so that is what is nuclear fission. So fission, always remember, heavier is broken into lighter. Okay, heavier is broken into lighter. So if I take an example, if there is, let us say, uranium-235, and on this uranium-235, if I bombard this uranium-235 with a neutron, this uranium-235 will split into krypton, which is lighter. It will split into barium. See, one heavy particle or element, when it is bombarded with neutron, it splits into two lighter elements. So this action of breaking up into lighter elements is what we call as fission. And when this breaking up happens, there is release of energy, and this release of energy is what we use for the generation of power. So that is what is nuclear fission. Okay, now the next is nuclear fusion. This fusion is still in an experimental stage. Okay, now the reason why it is still in an experimental stage is fusion requires 1,000,000 degree centigrade temperature for the fusion to happen. Okay, the best example of nuclear fusion is sun's energy. The reason, or the sun's engine is mainly nuclear fusion. Okay, the sun's engine is mainly nuclear fusion. So what happens in the sun? In the sun, there are two lighter elements that will join to form helium, or heavier elements. Two lighter elements will join to form heavier element, and when two lighter elements joins to form heavier element, it releases energy, and this energy is what is the energy released during nuclear fusion. So if I take sun, the hydrogen atoms will fuse in order to form helium. this hydrogen atoms fusing to form helium is what is nuclear fusion. Okay, so I hope you understood what is fission and what is fusion, and you also understood why fusion is in experimental stage, because the environment required for fusion to occur is several million degrees temperature. Okay, however, now if you take there is a joint project that is being done by European Union and Japan. Okay, this joint project uses something called Tokamac. It uses something called Tokamac. What is Tokamac? Tokamac is a donut shaped. It's a donut shaped vessel. Okay, and in this vessel there is swirling plasma. Okay, and the swirling plasma is having 200 million degree centigrade. This is the temperature. Okay, and at this temperature they are trying to join the hydrogen to, they are trying to join the lighter hydrogen elements to heavier elements. Okay, so hydrogen is being fused to form helium. Hydrogen is being fused to form helium. So this fusion occurs within a donut shaped vessel, and that is known as Tokamac. Okay, now this Tokamac are present at two places. One is in France. Okay, in France this Tokamac is known as the International Thermonuclear Reactor. In France it is known as ITER, International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. So it is known as ITER. And in Japan, the same Tokamac is known as JT60SA. Okay, this is Japanese Tokamac JT60SA. So this is in Japan, this is in France. Okay, ITR is in France and JT60SA is in Japan. So both these are nothing but Tokamaks, and as I told you, Tokamac is nothing but a vessel where plasma is held at a very high temperature where nuclear fusion happens. Okay, so this is what the entire news is. Now if you read the headlines, it will make sense. World's biggest experimental nuclear fusion reactor launched in Japan. Okay, so what they are talking about is this JT60SA. So they say that this is the world's largest Tokamac or Tokamac. That is what it means. Okay, so they have launched this JT60SA because ITER was already launched. It was there already in France. So now they have also launched something called JT60SA. So it is basically a joint project by both EU and Japan. They are using something called Tokamac as a technology. Okay, now apart from this, if I have to speak about nuclear fusion, even USA is experimenting with nuclear fusion, and they are experimenting with a different concept. Instead of using huge Tokamac vessels to have plasma, what they are using is something called inertial confinement fusion. Okay, what is inertial confinement fusion? It is the use of lasers. Okay, it is the use of lasers in order to achieve fusion. Okay, it is the use of lasers in order to achieve fusion. So that is what is inertial confinement fusion. This is done in USA. Okay, it is a very different method or methodology compared to Tokamac. All right, so this is some information that you should know regarding nuclear fusion and regarding the experimental stages of nuclear fusion. Okay, however, it is still not commercially viable. They are still in the experimental stage. So nuclear fusion is something that we have to look out for in the future. All right, so this is regarding the that information. The next is India seeks enhanced Interpol cooperation. Okay, so now as I told you, from prelims perspective, it becomes important for you to learn what exactly is this Interpol. Now look at this. The Interpol General Assembly is held as the largest gathering of law enforcement officials every year to deliberate upon various issues related to security and investigations. Okay, so what is Interpol? Okay, if I take Interpol, all right, Interpol is also the full form of that is International Criminal Police Organization. International Criminal Police Organization. Okay, the next is it is an intergovernmental body. It is an intergovernmental body. And the next is it has 196 members, and India is part of it. That is why India seeks enhanced Interpol cooperation. Okay. The next is it has its headquarters in Lyons, France. Okay, and it also has a global complex. It also has a global complex for innovation. Global complex for innovation in Singapore. Okay, and every country it has something called National Central Bureau. Every country it has National Central Bureau, and it is this National Central Bureau that acts as the central point of contact. It acts as a central point of contact for the Interpol Secretariat. So if Secretariat has to pass on the information or receive any information, it has one point of contact, that is the National Control Bureau. And in India, the National Control Bureau is mainly the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation. So Central Bureau of Investigation is this point of contact for the Interpol regarding any type of information. Okay, so it is basically enforcing of the laws, and it is basically making sure that all those criminals who are out on international boundaries or who are transnational in nature, so bringing these criminals under the ambit of the law is the main job of the Interpol. It acts as a police, and as the name suggests, it acts as international criminal police. Okay, so all the 196 members together have created something called Interpol General Assembly. Just like United Nations General Assembly, there is Interpol General Assembly, and all decisions are taken on this Interpol General Assembly. So the highest decision making power is the Interpol General Assembly. Okay, and the funding for the Interpol comes from statutory. There is statutory contribution, that is obligation for all the member countries to provide, plus you also get voluntary contribution. That is another aspect of Interpol. The next is Interpol releases something called red notices. Okay, now these red notices are released on those people who are wanted for prosecution. It is released on those people who are wanted for prosecution or in order to serve a particular sentence. So in that scenario, if there is a person who is wanted for prosecution or serving a sentence in some member country, and if the person is in some other member country, then the Interpol will release something called red notices. Okay, so red notices, you should keep it in your mind. Okay, so this is some background regarding Interpol. The reason why Interpol is in news is there is something called Interpol Future Council. Okay, and this Interpol Future Council was a concept that was shown in Interpol's vision document of 2023. So India has actually supported the creation. India has actually supported the creation of this Interpol Future Council. Now, this Future Council is basically the council of experts. It involves a council of experts who are going to deal with all those evolution of crimes. They are going to look at the evolution of crimes, and they are also going to look how this evolution of crimes necessitates the evolution of law enforcement. Okay, because of the evolution of crime, how the evolution of law enforcement also is important. Because see, as we go on becoming more digitized, as more and more penetration of artificial intelligence, deep fakes occur across the world, the crimes or criminals are evolving. So with that, it necessitates the law enforcement agencies as well as the law itself to evolve. And if this has to happen, we need to have a council of experts who start working on this, and that is what is known as Interpol Future Council. And this is what is India supporting for the creation of. So I hope you understood what is Interpol and why Interpol is important in current global arena. All right. So these are some of the important issues of the day. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you are getting clarity on these issues. Now, if you like this video, please make sure that you click on the subscribe button. Please make sure that you share these videos with as many people as possible, because the more the views, the more incentivized I am to do it on a consistent basis. Okay. However, I really appreciate all the feedback that I've got. I have also, appreciating the amount of love and support that I've got. And thank you so much. It is just that one single request is, please make sure that you are consistent in what you do, and don't miss out on any day. Keep making the notes, okay, and keep making sure that you are developing a thinking mind. If you don't develop a thinking mind, there is very difficult chance for you to get through this exam. And thinking mind comes only if you keep listening to wherever I keep telling the analysis, keep looking at that. Wherever I give you a question, think about it. When you keep thinking, you'll automatically get the way of how to approach questions both in prelims as well as mains. So with that, I'm going to end the video. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you on Monday. Bye.